So yes, for the past week, I've been playing the full version of Dragon's Dogma 2, and I really do believe a lot of people are going to be pleasantly surprised by this game. We're going to talk about what makes Dragon's Dogma 2 so unique in a very crowded space. There's so many open world RPGs that release anymore, but Dragon's Dogma 2 does something very, very special with their gameplay loop that I think a lot of you guys will love. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the story, not spoiling anything there. Is it interesting at all? Is there a really good, worthwhile plot to enjoy? And also, what's bad about the game? And yes, we're going to be diving into all the vocations and classes because I had a ton of fun experimenting and playing this one. So we're going to dive into all of it and also touch base on your concerns about the graphics fidelity versus console and PC. We're going to talk about what about the one save file? Is that really a big issue, having one character? And what about the difficulty? That's another big one as well. So a lot to go over. So yeah, I'm thinking to myself, do we start with the open world, how they handle that, because that's unique? Do we start with the vocations and the classes, because that's very unique to this game? I think we'll start with just that, the vocations. And I was addicted to the Thief and the Mystic Spear Hand. Of course, there's 10 vocations here on offer, all the way to the archer, the mage, sorcerer, to the warfarer, who is a jack of all trades and everything in between. There's some really, really unique stuff going on here with the vocations. And it's pretty cool with how you discover some of these vocations as well. It's not like they're just given to you right out of the gates. You really have to work to explore this world. And that's one of the things that I love about this game is there's very little hand-holding in that regard. You're kind of like an infant baby, if you would, going through this world. It kind of is very similar to Elden Ring in that regard, in the sense of discovery is really there with this game. And I think a lot of people will really embrace that. But back to the vocations. I really had a blast with the Thief. The thing that I noticed between switching through all the vocations is how different they felt in battle, ranging from smaller skirmishes all the way up to the big boss battles. You really have to think differently between each vocation. For example, with the Thief, he is very fragile, but he's very nimble and fast. And when you get to the master rank of Thief, you could really dodge those enemy attacks. You just don't want to get hit. And man, he can really do some damage once he crawls up on some of these bosses. That's really where the Thief excels. Mystic Knight, he can be kind of tanky. He could take some damage. In fact, he has some spells that you can cast that can give you a shield that makes you invulnerable for a period of time. And you can hand that out to your companions as well. So you can see how different the gameplay styles already are. And it's one of the reasons why this game is highly, highly replayable throughout your journey. You can just switch it up whenever you want. If you get bored with the Thief, you can go, hey, I want to try the Mystic Knight. And then you say, let's try the Archer for a little bit and really rework your companions around your current main vocation, which I think is a lot of fun. And again, it really upped the replay value for sure. And mentioning companions, which are known as pawns in this game. Now, I will say some of the pawns can be absolutely annoying in this game. More on that in just a moment. But overall, I had a blast with the pawns. Each one of them has their own personality, between kind-hearted, calm, or very daring. They'll go out there and really go headfirst into a boss battle, or perhaps they'll be more laid back and offer healing and be the support. And by the way, that's what I encourage with the main pawn, is to have a mage that will do the healing, offer support when you really, really need it. It works so well. But yeah, you could really mix it up. There's no rules with the pawns. You'll find these rift stones throughout the world. Sometimes you'll be able to find a very unique pawn with a certain set of skills, or they'll be over leveled compared to everyone else around you. So you could really find some really special pawns that also have some very cool personalities. They will guide you to treasures. And sometimes I will say they will annoy the hell out of you. Some pawns I had to fire pretty much immediately because they would talk too much. They had attitude. And sometimes I even had a pawn leave on their own because they felt like, they just didn't do a good job. So in this way, I really do like the personality with the pawns. Now, this is the good thing about the pawn system. You can clearly see which pawns are more talkative. So they really let you know, hey, this is going to be a quest guide. He's going to be guiding you around the world all the time. Some of you might not want that. So what you want to do is look for a pawn that is not a quest guide, that's not going to be so talkative. So that's always an option in this game. And I thought that was a great choice to let players know, hey, this pawn is not going to bother you as much. But yeah, between your main pawn and your vocations, they are all upgradable, and it's pretty extensive. Of course, there is an overall level system for your actual character that is maintained no matter what vocation you choose. However, each vocation has a rank, and then you could ultimately meet a master who will train you in some really, really special handy techniques, which are like the ultimates of your vocation. And in that regard, it's very, very rewarding and also offers a unique challenge as well. It's very interesting, the twist with the gameplay that they do here. And honestly, I don't want to spoil too much in regards to some of the things that you can discover. But yeah, there's some really cool twists with the gameplay later on down the road. And yeah, you probably already know this. There's a full-blown character creator, and that also extends to your main pawn. Now, once you actually create your characters, it's not set in stone. You can actually go into town and choose to customize your character pretty much fully, but also your pawn as well. However, you can't change between human and beastren. So if you do decide to be like a beastren, which is essentially a cat person, you have to really stick with that. And that's for subtle story reasons. NPCs and communities and characters will treat you differently, whether or not you're human or beastren. And yeah, if you're wondering about the open world map size, the game is absolutely massive. There's no worry whatsoever there. Besides, previously, Capcom did confirm this is 4 times the size of the previous Dragon's Dogma, which is really impressive, but it feels like it's very alive. Never once did I ever say to myself, man, this feels boring, this feels empty. No, it is very much alive with all sorts of hidden secrets, bosses, caverns, caves, ruins. And yes, you can actually obtain property in this game through various methods. It doesn't look like you can upgrade your property or anything like that from what I have seen so far, but it is cool that you can have your own place to sleep and chill. And if you do enough crime, you can go to prison. That is part of this game. You have to find a way out, and it's actually pretty neat addition to the game as well. There's also several cities and smaller towns and communities to explore, and they did a fantastic job of making this game feel very realistic, lived in, but at the same time maintaining differences and uniqueness between the different towns and settlements. But yeah, let me tell you what, the sense of discovery through the open world because of certain limited features really does this game a service. And what I'm talking about is limitations with fast travel. And it really makes you feel like you're very much a part of this world. Now, don't panic too much. There are still options with fast travel. You can discover fairy stones, which can take you into town, but they are limited and they can be kind of pricey at shops as well. And you'll find them on your adventures, but you're going to want to be careful when you use those. There are also ox carts between towns. Now, this is really cool because once you get on an ox cart, it's a slow, lumbering cart, and there is risk when you are traversing between towns that, yes, you are going to be attacked. And in my experience, 90% of the time, halfway through that journey, you get attacked. And what happens is you get on your ox cart, you could doze off, it goes black, and then all of a sudden, boom, it tells you, oh man, you are being attacked by a group of goblins, or sometimes you're in a full-blown boss battle encounter with an orc, and it jolts you out of your sleep, and it goes to show how dangerous this world actually is just to explore. You're constantly tiptoeing forward, and that's part of the joy about this game. Again, I refer to it as kind of like the Lord of the Rings wagon trail type experience, trying to see how far you can actually make it. And as you journey further and further and take on more damage from enemies, you'll notice your health bar decreasing in increments. So you'll find yourself on a long-winded journey, and you'll even hear your pawn saying, I am absolutely exhausted, I need to rest. You'll notice even though everyone has healed up, their health is about halfway down, including your own. That means it's time to make camp. You have to find a campfire and purchase camping gear from the inn to ensure that you can actually establish a camping tent. And there's also different values to these camps. There's modest, there's high value tents, which offer more rewards when you actually sleep. And once you sleep, you have a decision to make. Do you want to sleep until nighttime or daytime? And usually the best bet is to sleep until the daytime, unless, of course, you want to challenge the night. And there's reasons for doing that as well. Certain collectibles glow at nighttime and are much easier to find. These are extremely important because they can also up the value of your inventory space. And that's something else that you also have to consider, how much inventory space you can actually manage as you traverse. But yeah, when you're out on your adventure, you may notice that you're overdoing a little bit because the sun is setting, everyone's getting tired, and you hope that you have enough oil for your lantern to make sure that there is light during the nighttime. And let me tell you what, this nighttime is true pitch black darkness. There are moments where you will literally accidentally stumble into a giant boss and it makes you jump. And it's one of the joys about this game is exploring it at nighttime. There are different types of enemies that do appear at night as well, including zombies and different ghosts. And all of these offer different crafting materials that you're going to need for certain weapons, armor upgrades, that sort of thing. So there is a major reason to venture out at nighttime. It's not a gimmick whatsoever. There's also critical story missions, side missions, and that sort of thing where you really do want to venture out at nighttime. I love that they have made day and night matter in this way. And that's one of the reasons why Dragon's Dogma 2 is so unique. You can really get yourself into some bad situations, and it's fun working your way out of them. So yes, there's this very unique gameplay loop that begins to form as you play Dragon's Dogma 2. You have your main story arc, which rotates between investigation stuff. You'll venture into big boss battles. And of course, there are those stealth segments, which I'm going to say they're not very well developed stealth segments. They're there to more develop the story than anything else. So I wouldn't call them like pure absolute stealth. However, this game is more about the actual vocations and the combat that you can experience with these big monstrosity type creatures, which they're just absolutely fantastic events. And each monster has their own strengths and weaknesses, and you really do have to learn to adapt to each encounter. It's just such a cool experience. One of my favorite battles is definitely against the Griffin because this thing is such a huge, massive creature that will swoop in. It can actually carry you around and throw you into the ocean. You got to be really on your toes with this thing. But these battles can extend for quite some time. Sometimes the Griffin will fly away. You'll find the exact same Griffin the next day, still injured, and you'll fight it again, and then it will fly away yet again. Sometimes you can hop on its back and go to the actual nest and finish it off there. But yeah, my personal battle was really cool because I managed to find this Griffin 3 times throughout the open world, and on that third time, we finally managed to finish it off. And yeah, it was quite challenging as well. Now, one thing that I noticed during my experience with this game is facing off against an org was very difficult at the beginning. And then as you begin to progress with your vocation and you master skills and you buy better weapons and upgrade your equipment, you will truly become a badass and be able to take on these beasts very easily up until the point you get into, yes, the desert region. That's where things will change. You really do have to be prepared before you head into the desert region with this game. It's going to be a big wake-up call for many people, and it's going to be like, part 2 of the game has begun. Here we go. So at this point, I know a lot of you guys are probably like, hold up now, Robbie, this game can't be this perfect. Surely there is something wrong with this game. So yeah, there are some concerns that I definitely did want to address. And one of those concerns is definitely about the main story arc. What is here, the actual plot points are actually intriguing. It's just some of the delivery comes across as a little bit humdrum. And you ask yourself, where's the personality at times? There's long-winded moments of this. And then all of a sudden, the story will present a bit of personality. And that continues on back and forth throughout your adventure. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely some very interesting characters here. I definitely think it's a better attempt than the first game with the story. But what is here, I think some of you may be like, let's get this going. And I do have to say, I do like how some of the story actually does break up the gameplay, exploring these very, very beautiful interiors sometime. And there's a cool theme to some of these story beats as well. And I do really appreciate that for sure. Now, what about the one save file? So yes, this game does have, actually, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. They do say that this game has one save file. So what it is you have one character, and then with that character, you can experiment with all 10 vocations. But there is two save files. Hear me out. There's the one save file where it is kind of like your auto save and then your manual save combined. So key moments will auto save after a boss battle. If you sleep at an inn, that sort of thing, and you're good to go with that. But there's also another save file for your last inn visit, your last inn save. So if you visit an inn, it'll do a separate save file for the inn. And they do that because if you get in really big trouble with your auto save and you get into a situation that you just cannot get out of, they say, hey, do you want to go back to the inn where you last saved there? And that always gets you out of those really, really horrible, tough situations. I thought that was so smart that they at least did that. Now, I know a lot of you guys are like, man, I want infinite saves. And I think they do this because they want you to have a genuine role-playing experience. If you experience loss with a companion, they die, you have to live with that. You know what I mean? And they don't want it to be like this save scumming type stuff where you're constantly loading in and trying to get out of situations through taking advantage of having like 100 different saves. Some people might actually prefer that, but I get where Capcom is coming from. They want you to have an actual story that you can experience for sure. And then, yes, we got to talk about the elephant in the room. You guys have probably heard about it. The consoles are running at 30 frames per second uncapped. And of course, with PC, you can do, ultra graphics, 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second, that sort of thing. I'm actually playing on ultra on my PC, roughly around 60 frames per second. I'm on a 3090 graphics card, and it still runs very, very good for me. Now, I did get to try on the PlayStation 5, and I would classify the frame rate currently as a pretty smooth 30 frames per second, and there is going to be a day one patch that they claim is going to address some of the frame dips, because during some of the battles, it does dip into the upper 20 frames per second. So it's like 28 frames per second, that sort of thing, which I think is just inexcusable. So they really do need to iron that out. But yeah, if you're concerned about the 30 frames per second, let me ask you this. Were you able to play through Red Dead Redemption 2 on PlayStation 5 on Xbox Series X at 30 frames per second? And if you were and you enjoyed that experience, then yeah, you're going to enjoy Dragon's Dogma 2, and I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal when all said and done. With that being said, I really do hope that Capcom considers adding a performance mode to this game down the road. That would be an amazing patch, an update 6 months even after release or what have you. I do wish that was something they offered, but I feel like they have a vision of keeping the graphical fidelity at a certain standard. So yeah, if you're looking for something that's very different within the realm of open world RPGs, I really do think Dragon's Dogma 2 is it. I personally think that this one's going to be a smash hit. I would be surprised if it isn't. It is so much fun. I really enjoyed the first game, but there's just things that did hold it back. It wasn't graphically up to par with the contemporaries of the time. And now with this one, they nailed it. Like, this game is visually stunning for sure. Hell, even with the 30 frames per second uncapped on PS5, it is a looker for sure. So all I have to say is I highly recommend this one. It has a very quality gameplay loop that I think a lot of people will appreciate if they want an open world that kind of feels like you're on that Lord of the Rings Fellowship adventure, of surviving, seeing how far you can make it. That's really the appeal of the game, with these monstrosity creatures that you continue to run into. It's just such a pleasure and joy to play. Can't recommend it enough. So I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Look out for more news and updates, tips and tricks for Dragon's Dogma 2 right here. And thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Take care.